Hey everybody, welcome to a special Saturday edition of the live stream. I thought, you know what, today we could do something a little bit different. I know normally we talk about peer-to-peer lending and general stock market investing. And this evening we're going to have a little crypto coin, specifically Bitcoin 101, because I found Bitcoin as being particularly it's really been interesting me recently. I had a lot of misconceptions about it, a lot of judgments, and I've sort of become very interested in it and learning more about it. And I think it's something that we should all really pay attention to, and something most of us don't understand, myself included, up until this point. I've done some more research, but glad everybody is here to join us this evening. Hi, Alan, Colin, Keith Morris. It's always good for you to remind me where you're from. I get to check in with you. Aki Chap in Accrington, I believe. So we're kind of going to just go through a sort of a 101 Bitcoin, a little bit about the history, how it was created, who exactly we think might have created it, and why it was created, and how it's used, and how you might want to look at it as something that you might want to store for a period of time, and how do you buy it? How secure is it? How are the transactions made on the Bitcoin network? How is it a limited supply? Why is there only 21 million Bitcoins in supply that will be supplied by over the next century? So why does this all work, and how does it work? And to give you an understanding of the things that I found have been particularly confusing in the past, and sort of like stock market investing, once you get more information and things become demystified, it really makes a lot of sense. So yeah, that's the goal of the stream. As always, you can ask questions. If you have questions or comments, you want to pop them in the comments. Hit that thumbs up for me if you can. That helps me with the YouTube algorithm. So yeah, that's really the goal of the stream tonight. Is, again, special Saturday edition, a little bit different from normal. But I do like to do different things on the stream to give you different information about things you might not have considered before. So glad everybody's here. Hi, Brian and Woborn and Gary in Lincoln, as always. I'm sure the weather is hot and sunny up in Lincoln, as I always remember it to be. Probably not, but so you have two people in Lincoln. We got Gary and Keith. I wonder if you two know each other. Maybe you should get together and have a pint over peer-to-peer conversation. Maybe we could be the connector of all things peer-to-peer friends through this YouTube stream. But anyway, I will go ahead and get started. So, Bitcoin is a form of cryptocurrency. And what exactly is cryptocurrency? Well, it's a currency that's encrypted, hence the word crypto, and so that it can be securely passed between two individuals. So one, usually a buyer and then a seller, or a sender and receiver. And not always a monetary involved. Sometimes people just send fractional amounts of Bitcoin to each other using a wallet. But the whole idea is that it's encrypted and it can be passed very easily between two people. And that's what CryptoCoin is. And each unit of CryptoCoin is given a code string of numbers and characters that identifies it uniquely, and each user then gets a wallet address, which is a long string of characters and numbers which identifies you owning that wallet. And that wallet can be used to send and receive all different types of cryptocurrency. And usually there is a different wallet for a different type of coin. So if you own Bitcoin, you'll have a specific wallet for the Bitcoin. If you own one of the other types of coins that are out there, like Ethereum or Ripple or Litecoin, you would have a different type of wallet number for that. So who do we think is the actual creator of Bitcoin? I found this really interesting. I've been digging into this, and actually the answer to that is we don't really know. All we know is the name is Satoshi Nakamoto, and that is either a group of people or an individual person. We just don't know. Nobody's ever really figured it out. What it's thought is that Satoshi Nakamoto didn't create Bitcoin to be any type of investment vehicle. It was certainly never designed to be something that you could buy at a fraction of a dollar or a pound, and then for it to increase to whatever value it exploded to at 20,000, and then to be able to sold to make instant millionaires. That was never what Bitcoin was designed to do. So it's thought that this group, Satoshi Nakamoto, were the original creators of Bitcoin. And interestingly, this person or this group has not been heard of since 2010, which is way before Bitcoin ever exploded and the price jump. Well, we do know there was a white paper in 2008 that Satoshi published, and you can actually look at it and read it. It's pretty interesting. Sort of shows the beginnings of Bitcoin and how it started. If you're interested in the history of very early beginnings of Bitcoin, you can read that white paper that was published by Satoshi, and it's right there in that link. Yeah, hi Johnny, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us on the stream. Hi John Day, Johnny Berber. But yes, so you can read that white paper, and the idea of the reason why Satoshi developed this Bitcoin was to solve the problem within cryptocurrency was of double spending. This is where double spending is where somebody could essentially spend a digital currency exactly at the same time twice. And what Bitcoin was designed to do was to have a verified amount of different peers on a peer-to-peer network that could verify that transaction and make sure it was legitimate and not fraudulent. So that was the idea behind Bitcoin. Apparently, it's estimated that this Satoshi Nakamoto group now owns in the region of 1 million Bitcoins, but they've never really been used. It's believed that the Nakamoto group didn't design, they weren't intentionally trying to become millionaires or billionaires from Bitcoin. So what we think is that they've got this large storage of coins that will likely never be used. And if you can do a calculation on 1 million Bitcoins right now, that'd be worth about 9.4 billion US dollars. So it's a huge amount of money. Satoshi was quoted as saying, because the record of transactions is distributed across many nodes, which we know are computers, so that's the peer-to-peer network of how Bitcoin verifies transaction. It's difficult, or if not impossible, for someone to gain enough control of the system to rewrite the ledger to their own advantage. And what that means is every Bitcoin transaction is recorded on a ledger, and this is available online to anybody that wants to look at it. In order for somebody to gain control of that ledger, to be able to write a fraudulent transaction, they would have to have control of a certain percentage of the entire Bitcoin network, which right now is millions of computers, and they would have to have a control of 51% of that entire network to make a fraudulent transaction appear non-fraudulent, which would be very difficult, if not impossible. So what that does is it discourages any type of hacking accounts on the Bitcoin system. I know that's a little bit complicated, but if you actually look at the white paper, it sort of explains a little bit more about that. It's quite complex. But yeah, as I said, the Nakamoto involvement in Bitcoin, they went very quiet in 2010, and the last correspondence that anybody heard from Satoshi Nakamoto was an email to another developer that said the group or the person had moved on to do other things, and that was the end of that. And there's been a lot of speculation as to whether this Satoshi person was actually a single human being, but there is actually no proof at the moment to who that person is. It's just the person or group is very anonymous, which actually makes it very mysterious. So like a superhero, I find that very, very interesting. So we talk about, the reason that I think Bitcoin is a very interesting way of using currency is because of its limited supply. There are only going to be 21 million Bitcoins that are published. And right now, that is in the range. We are at about 18.5 million already in existence. So there's only a little bit less than 3 million left to put out into the supply. What that does is it means it's anti-inflationary. As we know, the governments right now are They just keep printing money, and what they're doing is devaluing fiat currencies like the dollar and the pound, and we've seen it happen to the yen. And in Germany, just that the currencies become less devalued. In Venezuela right now, we're seeing it. Argentina, we've seen it. And what Bitcoin does is it essentially eliminates the idea of inflationary situations, because once you can only publish a certain amount of supply of coins, you therefore defeat the whole idea of just printing more and more and more, which decentralizing things, which is good. So what Satoshi actually ended up doing, the group or the person, was limiting the supply to 21 million coins. And I don't think that they did that as a calculated number. I think it was more of an educated guess. There is actually an email that was written explaining, why this amount was set at 21 million. And if we believe the email to be true, basically what the email says, and Satoshi wrote this email, and it said, "My choice for the number of coins and distribution schedule was an educated guess. It was a difficult choice because once the network is going, it's locked in and we're stuck with it." So meaning that once 21 million was decided and put into the coding of this Bitcoin system, that was it. There was no way to change that. Satoshi said that he wanted to pick something that would make prices similar to existing currencies, but without knowing the future, that was very hard. He ended up picking up something in the middle. If Bitcoin remains a small niche, it will be worth less per unit than existing currencies. If you imagine it being used for some fraction of the world's commerce, then there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoins for the whole world, so it'll be worth much more per unit. So it's very interesting. If you want to read that email, it's published right here on a website. You can go ahead and read that email. It's quite interesting. Supposedly written by Satoshi. I have no reason to believe that it wasn't. So that's where that 21 million number comes up, and then I'll sort of explain, how Bitcoins are created, how they're mined, and what the rate of mining is, and how we see these Bitcoins coming into circulation to the total of 21 million, which will happen sometimes in the year 2100 when we're all long gone. But so I'll explain that a little bit later in the stream. It's quite interesting. So how these Bitcoins are actually discovered is through a process called mining. So Bitcoin miners. Mining is basically privately owned computer servers that solve a complex mathematical puzzle. And once that puzzle is solved, then it's verified across the network of peer-to-peer, which is the computers on the network, which are known as nodes, N-O-D-E-S. And then once that problem is verified and solved, because it has to be verified, those miners are rewarded with a portion of Bitcoin. So that Bitcoin amount that the reward was for solving the puzzle was originally 50 Bitcoins. Now it's down to 6.25 Bitcoin. Every 4 years, that number gets halved. So right now, we've just seen a halving down to 6.25, and we'll see another halving in 4 years. That will be a little bit over 3 coins. As time goes on, that reward gets lower and lower, and that's how the circulation of Bitcoins is reduced into the market, and how we get to that 21 million Bitcoin level. And it's very interesting because it's quite, well, not quite difficult. It's virtually very, very difficult to solve the actual mining mathematical equation it takes to solve the puzzle to be rewarded with the Bitcoin. And currently the odds are 1 in 13 trillion to solve that puzzle in one try. And what happens is you have these supercomputer networks that are putting thousands of mathematical equations together, and they're solving these puzzles eventually. So that difficulty obviously is easier for a supercomputer than it is for, say, my desktop computer. But in the early days of Bitcoin, people used to be able to mine these things on their desktops, and it was a lot easier to mine a coin. There's threads of people that have mined thousands and tens of thousands of coins back in the early days of 2010 when Bitcoin was first released. But nowadays, you need a very fast computer system to mine something. So we have this difficulty level right now set at about 1 to 13 trillion. And that difficulty level is actually adjusted every 2 weeks, depending on how many computers there are on the network trying to mine these coins will have actually an adjustment, I think, in about 3 days, and it will become 10% more difficult to mine these Bitcoins. So it's very interesting. As I said, people used to be able to mine them on their home desktop computers. And I remember when I had my poker playing friend here first told me about Bitcoin in 2013, he was actually trying to mine Bitcoins while he was writing a book that I was writing with him. And I remember the computer was just wearing away, and for weeks. And he would occasionally get a little hit or some kind of authorization, but it resulted in general failures, because what happened back then is people were realizing the more power that the computer processors had, and the more computers that they had running these mathematical puzzles to try to find the Bitcoin gold, the quicker they could do it. So what happened is you had these people that had money who would buy thousands of computers, and then they would be mining these coins, which would essentially put somebody who was trying to use a desktop computer out, they wouldn't be able to mine any coins. Because in order to mine and have a successful mining of a Bitcoin, you also have to be first. There could be 100 people that solve that mathematical puzzle to create that Bitcoin, but it's the first one that gets the transaction verified that actually is rewarded with the Bitcoin. So it became very competitive. So what now we have is these giant server housings of these giant server mines, they call them. They're buildings with thousands of computers in them, and these computers are competing with other mines to try to get these Bitcoins mined first. And the computers are actually very, very expensive. They range from about £2,500 up to they can cost tens of thousands of pounds. The more powerful they are, the more mathematical equations they can run per second to try to solve the equation. They're actually called, these computers are called application-specific integrated circuits, which is ASIC. So they're a lot different from your regular desktop Dell, or as I remember, my old school Amstrad Commodore 64 computer. They're very, very powerful computers, and a lot of the times they'll use GPUs that are very advanced, quite expensive. What happens is these mines, they're using a lot of electricity, right? Because they got to keep these computers running faster and faster and faster. And there's a lot of mines that are located in cold climates, because obviously it takes a lot of cooling to keep the computer systems to a nominal level. And they're also located in places that have cheap electricity, because the electricity generated and needed to run these computers to mine Bitcoin is quite hefty, and it gets quite expensive. So there's an interesting video that I found. It's called Inside a Bitcoin Mine. You can take a look at what a Bitcoin mine looks like. They've got them in China. They have them in, there's some in the west coast of America, over in the Seattle area. So it's really interesting to be able to go in and see exactly how these mines work. And some of them are generating, $70,000 to $80,000 a day. Some of them more. Just the more computers they have, the more money they're able, or the more Bitcoin they're able to mine. It does rely somewhat on luck, because again, they have to be the first to mine and solve that equation. But there's also mining pools where groups of miners together combine their computing power, and then they split any Bitcoin that is found between themselves. It's pretty interesting. And mining pools and mining companies pretty much represent about 90% of all the Bitcoin miners out there in the industry. Then you have the other 10% that are smaller operations. Maybe a very small percentage would be some guy at home on his desktop computer trying to mine anything anymore, because the electricity that's required to do that is probably going to cost him more than the Bitcoin is worth. But in 2018, the U.S. Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, they estimated that 1% of the entire world's energy consumption is actually coming from Bitcoin mining computers. So it's a massive amount of electricity that's being used to actually generate these Bitcoins. So if you have any questions, again, I'm just sort of giving you some facts, and so you can learn more about how it works. Just pop them in the comments below. John says, is it the Bitcoin software which increases the mining difficulty depending on production? Yeah, there's codes that are put into the whole software system that goes onto all the different millions of node computers that adjusts the actual difficulty. And this is, I'm definitely not a mathematical person. From what I understand, it is able to see, the network's able to see how many computers are mining it, and then it just gets adjusted every 2 weeks. So it's pretty complex code, and there's no way for one person to change it. It has to be done on all of the node computers at the same time. So it'd be impossible. You'd have to have control of the network to be able to change that. It's very interesting. So the question that I get asked a lot about this Bitcoin topic is how are they able to limit the supply chain of 21 million? What's to stop somebody from saying, oh, it's not going to be 21 million anymore, it's going to be 50 million or 100 million? Because there are some coins that have billion coins out there. The way they do that is new Bitcoin blocks are added approximately every 10 minutes, and the supply is halved every 4 years. So miners are rewarded again. It started at 50 Bitcoins per puzzle solving, and now down to 6.25. It'll halve again in 4 years. And the last Bitcoin will be mined in, I believe, approximately 2140 after we are just dust in the ground. That's how they're able to limit it, by having this mathematical equation about how they're released. So for 18.5 million now, if you do the math down with the halving and how often they're actually put into circulation every 10 minutes, you'd see that results in 21 million Bitcoins. I'm often asked too, well, how are Bitcoin transactions actually verified? So if you think about when you make a credit card transaction through Visa, MasterCard, or American Express, you run the card and it gets sent through a computer software to verify that the transaction isn't actually fraudulent. This is done by the credit card companies themselves. And Bitcoin is the same when it comes to verifying transactions, but the difference is it's not regulated by a central authority. So obviously Visa card verifies Visa transactions, American Express the same, MasterCard. Bitcoin does not have a central authority that verifies these transactions. What there are, these millions of computers called nodes, are the ones that are verifying the transactions. And what the nodes do is they store information about prior transactions to help verify their authenticity. So if you can imagine, there's, let's say, for the sake of this example, there's 1 million nodes out there that are verifying transaction. If I make a Bitcoin transaction, there will be a verification coming from a certain amount of node machines on the network at any given time. It's very random. Not all of the 1 million computers would be used to verify the node. There is a amount of nodes that are used to verify these transactions because there's so many of these transactions happening all the time. So essentially, it's very much a peer-to-peer network. We talk a lot about peer-to-peer lending on this stream and on my channel, and Bitcoin is a form of peer-to-peer. It's just in a different way. We're all on a peer network that's being used to verify transactions to make sure that they are actually legitimate. And these transactions, as I say, you can go to blockchain.com if you want to look at transactions in real time happening. Every single one of those transactions is on a thing called a ledger, and whoever's running a node on their machine has a ledger like that where everything is being recorded on it. So whenever someone puts their Bitcoin up for sale and another person buys it, that transaction must be confirmed. To do this, the network examines the transaction over the nodes to verify the purity of the transaction. Once the network confirms that the transaction is legit and that the unique code has not been used in another transaction at the same time, then the transaction is approved and completed. And what happens is if you actually are a Bitcoin miner or you're one of these mining facilities, they are rewarded for helping to verify these transactions in the form of a fee. And some of the big Bitcoin miners are actually verifying thousands and thousands of fees throughout the day, and they're being paid a small fraction of a Bitcoin in order to do that. That's also one of the things that incentivizes miners to keep mining, because as the production is halved every 4 years, obviously there's less Bitcoins to find, and miners have to be incentivized to keep on mining Bitcoin, also helping to verify transactions. And the way they do that is through the fees that they receive for verifying transactions. And we'll talking of circulation. So yes, there will only ever be a maximum of 21 million Bitcoins, but the estimate of 18.5 million in circulation is actually really just an estimate of what's actually being used. A lot of people have lost their Bitcoin wallet numbers, and then also some people have died, obviously, and not passed on these wallet informations to others. So there's a portion of those Bitcoins that will never actually be used in circulation. Then we also have approximately 1 million that Satoshi Nakamoto is in possession of that may never be used. So how much is actually circulating we're not entirely sure what's being used. We just know what's been put out there at 18.5 million, and that number goes up a little bit as more Bitcoins are actually mined. There's been some really interesting historical transactions in Bitcoin, which I found fun. The first one ever recorded was on January 12th in 2009, where Satoshi Nakamoto, the founder group of Bitcoin, sent 50 Bitcoins to a computer programmer named Hal Finney for a zero fee. That was the first ever recorded transaction, likely done as a test. Hal Finney was a programmer that was connected to the Bitcoin project who died in 2014. And one of the other transactions that I found really super interesting, there was let's see, this is back in, I want to say 2010, a gentleman named Laszlo Hanishik, I'm going to butcher that name, probably a Polish name, in Jacksonville, Florida in the US, who he posted on a forum that he wanted to buy 2 pizzas and have them delivered to his house. And in order for those pizzas, he would pay 10,000 Bitcoins. What he did was he offered this to many people on a forum thread and didn't just do it one time. We're not quite sure how many times Laszlo did this, but there's pictures of him with the pizza, and you can actually read the thread of him asking for this, and it's been verified because the transaction can be seen on a ledger of him receiving his pizzas for the 10,000 Bitcoins. So that was actually a very expensive pizza. That was to today's price, one of those transactions at 10,000 coins would have cost Laszlo's about $94 million. So we're talking about what, 75, 80 million pounds in Bitcoin. So I bet he's kicking himself now for doing that. But if you want to read the thread, it's actually really interesting. You can see his posting and the people who took him up on that and delivered him pizza for the 10,000 coins back in 2010. Of course, the coins weren't worth much very much back then. You couldn't really do anything with them. There wasn't a way to trade them like there is now and to buy them. So Laszlo probably thought, I'm getting a pretty good deal. So I'm actually being able to use these Bitcoins for something. But here's the thread if you want to read about Laszlo and his experience with this pizza trading for Bitcoin. One of the other significant transactions that we saw was a company called Mt. Gox, MTGOX. It was based in Tokyo, Japan. And they launched in 2011. They handled about 70% of all of the Bitcoin trades and transactions on the market. Unfortunately, ended up filing for bankruptcy because they had security breaches in their website that led to about 750,000 Bitcoins disappearing from customer wallets. There was obviously some allegations of fraud, and at today's value, that 750,000 coins is obviously a huge amount. Several billion pounds in Bitcoin just disappeared. Bitcoin is actually very, very safe. The problem that we've seen in the past, and it's getting better with security, but it's not the Bitcoins that are getting hacked, it's actually the platforms that sell them. So obviously right now we have Coinbase, which is the most famous one, and we have Binance, Binance that has some issues of disappearing cryptocurrency over the last year, but they are becoming more stable now and more difficult to hack into. But I'll talk also about the state safety, and if you do want to buy cryptocurrency, how you can keep it safe. John says, are there many non-verified transactions reported? I don't think that there are, as far as I know. To be honest with you, I don't think it's the way that the system works. I, from what I understand, it's very difficult for a non-verified transaction to even go through the system. So, as far as I know, I'm sure there are non-verified transactions. There's definitely not too many. I haven't seen too many on the reports, but I have to look more into that. It's a good question. Brian says, how is Bitcoin's value determined? It's basically determined like a stock and a share, demand and supply. It's whatever somebody wants to pay you for your Bitcoin and whatever you're willing to pay for it. That's purely based on demand and supply. So, question here is Bitcoin regulated? Absolutely not. It was created to be an unregulated form of currency. The only type of regulation is self-regulated body of digital currency, which is called the Digital Asset Transfer Authority, or DATA. That was a group of influential, it began as a group of influential Bitcoin people that were involved in the US Bitcoin market. One of the founders, I think, of the trading platform Kraken was involved. And it's a self-regulating body of digital currency, kind of like, the FCA in a way. The FCA is paid for by the members of the FCA, which are the companies that are regulated by the FCA. So the DATA group was created for that. But as a whole, the idea of Bitcoin is for it never to be regulated. And that's one of the ideas of it. So why should you look at Bitcoin versus other coins? There are some coins out there on the market that, obviously, after the launch of Bitcoin, there was a lot of different coins that were released by different companies and people. Probably the most famous is Ethereum, which currently has about 111 million coins in circulation. Today's price about $48. We got Litecoin, 65 million coins, about $45 for a coin. Dash, 9.5 million coins, $73. And then you have the crazy little Ripple coin, which is 44 billion coins that is valued about 19 US cents, so $0.19. And the reason why I recommend Bitcoin as being what I think is going to be the go-to currency of crypto in the future is it's really about branding. That's sort of the Colgate of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and they're very well known. If you ask younger people what the cryptocurrency coins are, likely they'll know what Bitcoin is, and they have more usage than any other coin out there. And I think they do have a first mover advantage when it comes to cryptocurrency. I do own some of the other coins, but in very small amounts, because I think that Bitcoin's sort of going to be a boom or bust currency in crypto. It may be blockchain that is actually where the real development and the real investment happens, rather than the actual coin itself. We're sort of thinking about if you'd invested in cars when Henry Ford invented the Model T, and you said, oh, I'm going to invest in the Ford Model T, versus in just automobiles in general. That's kind of what Bitcoin is. It's just a brand of different coin. It's one that I personally think will be the coin that sets the stage for future developments for other coin, and probably the coin that gets used most in things like retail. We have companies like Starbucks right now where you can go pay with crypto, and particularly Bitcoin. I mentioned in past streams, we've got some of the sports teams that are accepting Bitcoin now as payment for sports tickets. And it doesn't tend to be the other coins that are really featured when it comes to companies announcing that they're going to accept crypto coin as a form of payment. It tends to always be Bitcoin. So that's why I tend to favor Bitcoin. One thing that's been said as a negative of Bitcoin is the privacy. It's not really a very private coin because there is this ledger that you can see all of these transactions. So there is a couple of coins out there that I'd consider to be more private that some people think will be more utilized, and one of them is Monero and Zcash. Personally, I don't own those coins because, again, I'm sort of all in on the Bitcoin model. But if you believe privacy is going to be the way to go, then you can always look at Monero and Zcash. But again, it's very, very speculative. Even Bitcoin is very speculative. I'd say never dump your entire life savings into anything like this. So once again, hit that thumbs up button if you're enjoying the stream today. It's a lot of information, I know. If you have questions, you're confused about anything that I said, I've sort of gone through a lot of information. Just pop the comments in the stream. And if I know the answer, I don't know everything about this cryptocurrency system, but I will try to announce it. We'll talk about, Brian says, do you need a digital wallet to hold a Bitcoin investment? Yeah, I'll talk about that. What's the best way to buy it? How do you hold it? How do you hold it safely, more importantly? Hi, Paul and Kenilworth. Nice to see you. John Day says, are other currencies structured as Bitcoin with different parameters? Yeah, there are coins that actually run off of different networks. So, for instance, Ethereum is the main coin network, and there are other coin brands that run off the Ethereum network that have been coded differently. I'm not familiar with which coins actually run off all the different networks, but yes, if you go to Coinbase.com, you can read on Coinbase's website about which coins run off which networks. And so if you feel like you want to get into Bitcoin, Coinbase is the site that I use. They offer you get $10 of free Bitcoin if you buy $100 worth. You can use it in the UK. Colin says, is it worth buying a small amount of the other currencies just in case they go big? Yeah, I mean, you can. It's very speculative. Some of the coins that I've owned in the past are trading. I think one of them I looked at, I can't remember which one, DAI was 40. Don't quote me on this. One of the coins was $45, and at one point it was $1,750. So, there is, if you're going to put a few pounds in, yeah, sure, why not have a stab and stick it away for 20 years and see what happens. But it is very speculative. I think that Bitcoin is really one of those things that the risk to reward is very low. And if you think about when Bitcoin was first released, it was priced at next to nothing. I mean, you could buy Bitcoins for a few US cents or a few pennies, and your reward amount was huge. Bitcoin reached 20,000 US dollars at one point. So there is a chance that even now it's trading at about 9,300 US, that there's people that think Bitcoin is going to go anywhere from 100,000 US up to, there's people out there that think 10 million US. So, putting a few pounds or a few £100 into something like that and just sitting on it, your reward is just so high. It's very doubtful in a stock nowadays that you can buy a stock for, a pound that's ever going to really reach 1,000 or 2,000 pounds. But with Bitcoin, this upside is huge on it because of its limited circulation supply. yeah, I would definitely say it's worth shoving a little bit of cash. Now, the other coins, again, you could split a little bit into the other coins, but there's quite a few of them, and I personally I don't. I think I own one Litecoin, maybe a half a I'll say Ethereum. That's right, Ethereum coin, and some bits and bobs of the other ones, but I don't ever think they'll turn into anything. That's just a guess, but yeah, I don't think it's bad. So Brian says Bulgarian crypto queen Ruja Ignatova founded one coin. She sold thousands of coins before disappearing with up to 15 billion. The coin didn't exist. She's still on the run with the FBI. Yeah, so we'll talk about safety. So obviously anything to do with a computer network has an opportunity, albeit is very low now, that it could be hacked. So what you can do, we'll talk about how do you buy this stuff, because this was something that confused me a long time ago. Actually, when I first looked at Bitcoin, when it was $2.75 US cents, it was the confusing thing was how do you actually buy this stuff? You would have to do it through a very shifty looking website back in 2013 named Mount Gox, which again I explained had gone bankrupt. But nowadays you have some trading platforms that are very legitimate. Here in the US, you can actually buy through a company called Robinhood, which I don't recommend. But what I do recommend is Coinbase. Coinbase is the one spot where just most people tend to buy their crypto coin. And what you can do is go ahead and deposit your money and open a Coinbase Pro account, which is free, and transfer instantly your funds from Coinbase to Coinbase Pro. I'm going to make a video and show how to do this. It's very, very easy. It looks confusing. Coinbase is very easy to use though. And you instantaneously exchange it over to Coinbase Pro and then make your trade, buy your Bitcoin, and then transfer it back to Coinbase or to a hardware wallet, which is the safest way to do it. Now, the reason why you use Coinbase Pro versus Coinbase is because the fees on Coinbase Pro, if you're making a transaction anywhere from about 0 to 10,000 pounds, you're only going to pay 0.5% on the trade. If you're lucky enough to be able to buy 50 million pounds of coin, you pay a zero fee, and it does scale down depending on how much you're buying. If you do that transaction on Coinbase's regular website, you're going to pay about 1.49% in fees. So it's a third of the fees less on the Pro account, which is, again, it's the same company, and you can move your funds instantaneously back and forth and your Bitcoins back and forth straight away. So that's what I recommend you do. I'll go ahead and again put a link in if you want to check out Coinbase. That's a referral link. You'll get $10 worth of free Bitcoin if you put in $100 into Bitcoin. Yeah, so that's the one I use. I have used Binance in the past, but only to buy a couple of coins that I could not buy on Coinbase. Coinbase doesn't support all of the coins, but yeah, I would recommend just sort of sticking to Bitcoin and then buying it through Coinbase. Now, what I would also recommend is getting a hardware wallet. This is the safest way. Was if you leave your coins inside of Coinbase and for some reason the company goes bankrupt or gets hacked, you are running that risk that you could possibly lose your coins. You can buy a hardware wallet by a company called Ledger, Ledger. They sell small hardware wallets. They're pretty easy to use, and they would store all of the codes of your wallet. Obviously, there's the downside of that is if you lose the wallet, it looks like a little USB key. If you lose that, obviously you've lost all your Bitcoins because everything is stored on there. And if you happen to have a house fire or a flood, something like that, it would be no different than a piece of jewelry that you're storing got stolen. That's one of the downsides of a hardware wallet, but you also don't have to worry about leaving it online in a Coinbase account. So there's upsides and downsides to that. Just so you know the different terminologies, you've got hot wallets and cold wallets. Hot wallets are anything online, internet stored, and cold wallets are anything that is a hardware wallet, like the Ledger or the Trezor wallet. So that's basically the safest way. One thing too, you always, if you are going to buy a cold wallet or a hardware wallet, you want to buy it straight from the manufacturer. Don't go on Amazon and buy it from some third party. And when you get the wallet, you always want to initialize it and reset it, because you just never know. You don't want to put your Bitcoins into a wallet that you bought from some third party, because who knows what kind of little tracking codes they can put on those things. So what's to stop? Chris is asking, what's to stop somebody from scamming? Well, obviously, the platforms that are trading crypto coins right now are there's nothing to stop it. You have to go on ethics, and I guess it's like saying, well, what happens if you invest in a peer-to-peer company that goes bankrupt and takes all your cash? Right? It's possible, absolutely possible. First of all, Coinbase is very well renowned in the US and the UK. I would consider it to be a safe place to buy crypto. Second thing is you can move your crypto off of Coinbase instantly once you purchased it. So chances are, that's not going to happen to you in a period of a few seconds, that you could plug your hardware wallet into your computer and download the codes. Boom, you've got your crypto in your own safe possession. But there's always, obviously any company can scam, any finance company can go under, especially if you're dealing with European companies that are non-UK based or non-US based. You have more of a chance that you could be susceptible to a scam. Even Chinese companies, not to say anybody in non-UK or US is bad. I'm sure there's plenty of reputable trading platforms out there. But I do like to err on the side of caution and to use Coinbase, which I think is very, very well renowned now in the business. You can also look at Kraken, Karken. Kraken actually was one of the companies that helped when Mt. Gox went into bankruptcy, and they were helped part of the investigation with them, so they've been around for a while. I don't actually have a link for the hardware wallet, Gary, but you can just Google the name of the wallet. It's Trezor or Ledger. That's the safest way. If you can keep the wallet stored somewhere that's probably outside of your home, maybe in a bank, somewhere like that, that would probably be the safest thing you could possibly do. It's inconvenient. If you want to buy more Bitcoin or send some Bitcoin to someone, you have to have that wallet handy, that hardware wallet. So there is that. So why do I think that Bitcoin is going to be something that you might want to shove your money into? Again, personally, I don't buy a huge amount. It's a small percent of my liquid net worth that I use for investing. I also use Bitcoin along with index trackers, peer-to-peer lending, a little bit of savings, and property. But what I do is I allocate a bit of cash every month into Bitcoin. I think the decentralizing currency is going to be really big. As what's happened in Venezuela, if you look right now, is crazy, right? And we think, well, that couldn't happen. That couldn't happen to us in the first world countries like the UK or the USA. But, the actual real truth of the matter is that there is a possibility that severe inflation could happen to any country. It happened to Japan, happened to Germany during the Nazi occupation. There's obviously those famous photos of people sweeping up currency notes in the street because they were worth nothing. And there is a possibility that can happen. And Bitcoin is a decentralized currency that cannot be printed for combating, and devaluing and currency. It just can't. So if you can't create more of it, it solves that inflationary issue. I think the reason why it will become more popular in the future is just the generation of the millennials. I'm 47 years old, but if you go and ask an 18-year-old what cryptocurrency is, they all know because they're all internet kids, right? The age of the internet is their generation. And there was a study. Let me see if I can find it. There was a Harris Poll study that they did. Let's see if I have the statistics. It's quite interesting. Yeah, they polled 18 to 34-year-olds about what they would invest in, and only 37% of that 18 to 30-year-old group demographic, I think it was 2,000 males, 2,000 females, only 37% of them own stock, and 27% they prefer Bitcoin over stocks, and a much larger percentage prefer Bitcoin over gold. And when asked why, they said they don't trust banks. They don't trust the banking system. And also they saw what happened during the 2008 financial crash, what it did to their parents. So how those stock portfolios were absolutely decimated during the 2008, 2009 financial crash. So these younger generation millennials, they believe that their money is actually safer in a place like Bitcoin than in the stock market. So what you're going to see is people are going to invest in this form of cryptocurrency. These 18 to 30-year-olds, the millennials, are going to go out and get jobs. And instead of contributing to their retirement accounts through stocks and shares, they're buying Bitcoin now. And that's pretty interesting, right? That's one of the reasons why I think the Bitcoin is going to be the way of the generational future of cryptocurrency and currency in general. Now, will it be a used system in place of currency, paper currency? Who knows? I mean, it's very possible that one day everything changes, right? And something that is non-controlled by banks and central governments could absolutely be used. Nobody forces us to use money, right? Think about how we don't use paper money anymore. We used to use paper money for everything, and now we use credit cards. We as consumers decided that we were going to make that shift to not paying with cash for everything, now to paying with credit cards. And it's possible that as more and more companies offer crypto as a way of paying for things, that people will decide whether they want to use, fiat pounds or dollars to pay for things, and maybe they just accept cryptocurrency as a way of mass payments. We don't know. There's a lot of big corporate companies right now that are very interested in the idea of blockchain and cryptocurrency and are buying this and investing in it. Facebook is doing the Libra project. Kentucky Fried Chicken, you can pay. You can get you a bucket of chicken with Bitcoin. We have Fidelity, the investment platform that mines Bitcoin. They've been mining Bitcoin since 2014. They also have a crypto trading platform now, Fidelity. You're just going to see more and more adaptation of this form of currency in the future. And in 5 years, I think the landscape will be looking very much different. I think it's going to annoy the governments because they can't regulate it. And maybe they'll find a way to regulate it. Maybe they'll prevent you from buying Bitcoin. Who knows? There's a lot of unknowns in the future. But that's why I think it's going to become a very highly adopted way. And as things become easier, and right now it's a lot easier to buy cryptocurrency than it was back in 2011, where it was very confusing. It was hard to buy. People didn't understand the idea of having this wallet number and how it was used and how the money crypto could be sent. Now you can go on companies like Coinbase and it's easy, very easy to buy it and store it, and you can trade it. People are trading it like a stock. So as things become easier, they're saying that in the next 5 years, every single mobile phone is going to have a crypto wallet automatically programmed into your phone. So that type of mass level of adoption is a big deal. So John Day says, would HW wallet, so would a hardware wallet have very high security built in? So if lost, here's the thing. You don't want to lose that wallet to begin with, because if you lose it, it doesn't matter, right? There's no way to get that coin back. So it wouldn't matter if you lost it. But the security, when you put it into your computer and sync it, is very high. It's totally encrypted. But if you lose it, yeah, you're not going to get that coin back. That's one of the downsides of a hardware wallet. Mr. Smith says 20% drop in GDP in the UK, not good and could get worse. Absolutely agree. Paul says, okay, so I bought Bitcoin, transferred to my wallet, and the Bitcoin goes up in value. Can I sell via the wallet for cash? And are there tax implications? Okay. Definitely not a tax expert. And I probably should know that. That's something I definitely need to know. So I'll be honest, I don't know about the tax implications. From what I understand to be true is it's recorded like if it's selling a stock and a share, and I can verify that. You are making income, but what you would have to do is once it's on your wallet, on your hardware wallet, you would need to use a trading platform to sell it, unless you were transferring just to a private individual, which I definitely wouldn't recommend. So you would plug it into your computer, upload it to the trading platform like Coinbase or Coinbase Pro, and then you can trade it and sell it at whatever the going price is at the time. So it's very easy to move your Bitcoin from a place like Coinbase into your hardware wallet. I will check on the tax implications. John says, what do you feel regarding volatility and price trends over the next 5 years? Crystal ball time. Wait, where is my crystal ball? Hang on. So inside the water, I see volatility will decrease over the next 10 years. Yeah, there's no way to know. What I think is going to happen is once the circulation starts to decrease and it becomes more widely accepted as a form of currency, you will see things in the volatility start to drop. It's a very early type of finance method. So think of it like the internet, right? When we first used the internet, we were using modems and dial-up, and it was very slow, and we couldn't imagine doing the things that we do now on the internet. You know, who would have thought we'd be trading and buying stocks and shares on the internet 20 years ago, 30 years ago? You wouldn't. And as things progress and cryptocurrency ages, you'll see that volatility will decrease, I believe, and become a more stable form of holding, an investment. Having said that, you could say, well, look at gold or look at the stock market. Both of those things have a reputation for being somewhat volatile at certain periods of time. And I think that Bitcoin probably will always have some type of volatility, but I don't think you'll see, the types of volatility that we've seen where it's dropped from 20,000 US down to 3. I don't think it will continue to be that volatile. As far as the price goes, crystal ball, I'm being optimistic, and I'm hoping the 100,000 US up to the $1 million range, with a Hail Mary to the $10 million. But again, it's extremely speculative. I buy it just for speculation that the reward is so much higher than the risk involved. For a small amount, you can have a punt, and who knows. look at the early adopters. It had a punt at $1 and were holding Bitcoin when it went up to 100, up to 1,000, up to 10,000, up to 20,000. They had a tiny amount of risk to a huge amount of reward, and I think that's what Bitcoin eventually offers. So Paul says, why hasn't gold become a currency like you think Bitcoin could be? Well, we used to have the gold standard, and people did used to use gold as a currency, right? Gold coins were bartered, but I think it's because of the removal of the gold standard when it was tied to currency is the reason why. And also gold's quite difficult to. It's not digital, so you can't use gold like you can Bitcoin. If you have a bar of gold and you want to buy something, you've got to physically take it to the person, sell it to them, and they have to verify that it's real. Cryptocurrency and Bitcoin solves this problem. I can send a payment to you, Paul, in a matter of a split second, and I don't have to verify anything, and you don't have to verify anything. The network does it. Gold doesn't offer that. Gold's also very difficult to store. You want to store a lot of gold, where do you physically put it? There's companies out there that will store the gold for you, but do you trust them? Do you trust them to hold a large amount of gold in their possession? What if that company goes out of business and your gold suddenly disappears? So, yeah, exactly. Gary says it's hard to fractionally trade gold. There's a beautiful thing about Bitcoin. It can be divisible down to a millionth. So you can trade very small fractional pieces. And if you don't want to buy a whole Bitcoin that's valued at 9,400 US right now, you can buy whatever amount you want and own a little fraction of 0.0000001, whatever it is you want to own. Yeah, Alan says you could put the gold with your Bitcoin hard wallet. You could. Also, gold's difficult to liquidate. I mean, you take it down to a pawn shop and sell it. But, Bitcoin, you can liquidate it in an instant. I don't have to drive in my car with gold on me and try to get somebody to give me the gold spot price for it. So Rajesh, I hope that I pronounced that correctly, says, regarding hardware wallets, you can retrieve your coins if you lose them. Is that a question, Rajesh? Can you explain a little bit more? If you lose the wallet or it gets destroyed, from what I understand, you lose your Bitcoins, but maybe it's changed. Or maybe there's a ledger stored on your computer that syncs with the wallet itself. I don't know. So that is basically the 101 on Bitcoin. Okay, see, Rajesh knows more than I do about the actual technology that runs behind it. You have a recovery seed, 18 or 21 words. Yeah, if you have the recovery seed. Okay, well, there you go. Rajesh, maybe you could help me out on that side of things. From what I understood, if you didn't have that information, your hardware wallet gets destroyed and you don't have that information stored somewhere, you cannot actually retrieve it. So you'd have to have the recovery codes or whatever that character string is recorded somewhere. So, yeah. I guess it'd be like you having a peer-to-peer lending portfolio. You'd have documentation of all your different loans written down somewhere. Okay. So Rajesh is a recovery seed. The recovery seed is different for every piece of Bitcoin that you own, right? So you'd have to have a ledger of of all of those characters in one spot. So let's say if you did have that on a piece of paper and you lost the piece of paper, you would lose your Bitcoin because you have no record. So you'd have to have it on a computer, which is somewhat dangerous. If somebody hacked into your computer, they would be able to get that recovery seed or those character strings. Or if your computer got destroyed in a fire, you'd lose it. So from what I understand, the safest way is to have everything on a hardware wallet. And then if you say recovery seed, you'd have to keep it on paper, right? Yeah, that's exactly right. So you got to keep it on paper, and you have to probably make duplicates and leave them in different safe places. So I think one of the best places you could put something like that would be in a bank safe to deposit box. It is one of the downsides of using a hardware wallet. You do have that problem of having to keep the record of everything that you have put on your wallet, and you have to keep the wallet and those different documentations in safe places. So I suppose you could bury it in your back garden in a tin, or give it to your gran. I don't. So there you go. Yeah, so that is the 101 of Bitcoin. If you have more questions, pop them in the stream. Probably run for another few minutes. I find it very, very interesting. I particularly like that thread about the guy that bought the pizza for 10,000 Bitcoins back in 2011 or 10. You should check out that. Check out that thread. It's highly interesting. And then again, if you want to sign up for Bitcoin, for Coinbase, where I recommend buying, there's an affiliate link. Yes, Alan, it does require a little bit of going through once or twice to really understand how Bitcoin works and how we can use it. But I'm going to go ahead and post this information up on the website on financialthing.com so you can read it. It's going to take me a couple of days, and I'll probably put it in the description in the YouTube video too, so you can read it and sort of brush up. There's some good videos on YouTube. Just Google Bitcoin 101. Explains basically how it works. And just think of it as a peer-to-peer network. Transactions are being verified on thousands, if not millions, of computers along the peer network. That's how something cannot be frauded. And I think that's pretty much it. I really enjoy using Bitcoins. Once I understood it, and I take donations now in Bitcoins from people, and it's really easy. You literally just copy and paste your wallet number and give it to somebody, and they can send it on a website like Coinbase very quickly, instant transactions. And then you can actually see the transaction come up on the ledger on blockchain.com as you use it. And it's really easy. And if you want to have a Bitcoin node on your desktop computer to be one of the computers that verifies transactions, you can actually get paid for that. It's a very, very small amount of money. It probably cost you way more in electricity to have your computer running to be one of the node verifiers, but you can do that too. You can go to bitcoin.org's website and find out how to do that and download the code. It's a little bit technical. It's not too hard, but yeah, there you go. So that's it. Wrapping up the stream. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Maybe we'll do a Bitcoin round 2. Maybe like a live video showing how to use the Coinbase platform, how to trade, how to actually buy the Bitcoins or the altcoins, whatever you want. Yeah, John, it is a bit of fun. It's a bit of speculation. Aki says, I try to open an account with Coinbase, but for some reason it won't take my passport no matter how long or complex I make it. I don't know, maybe that's an Accrington thing. I'm not sure why. Aki, if you send me an email, maybe I can help you through that. help@financialthing.com. Happy to help. Is it Groundhog Day? I didn't know. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks again for everybody joining us. Paul, Glad you enjoyed it, Gary. Mr. Smith. It's good. I always have fun chatting with you guys and giving you as much information as I know. Martin says I'll stick to LoanPad. Yeah, honestly, Martin, it's a lot simpler once you understand. It's really not as hard as you think it would be to buy and just hold on to Bitcoin and to sell it whenever. It's very easy. Just think about when you didn't have information about peer-to-peer, right? And the first time you hopped on a peer-to-peer lending website, you were just kind of confused because you didn't have the information. But it's very easy to do. So anyway, I'm going to end the stream. Thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you on Thursday where we'll get back to the peer-to-peer lending information and investing news. So have a great weekend, be safe, and be prosperous. Take care.